good afternoon, and good evening to the hundreds of thousands of listeners from all walks of life and around the world. I am J.D. Messenger, and I am the host for today's edition of NC Review. We are going to be talking about an amazing, wonderful new book that has just been released, and it is entitled What Wags the World? Tales of Conscious Awakening, by none other than Miriam Knight, the founder of New Consciousness Review, and normally the host of this radio show, and also by Julie Clayton. The book is an unbelievable collection of 36 tales of mystical and unexplained phenomenon by a series of credible, professional, highly educated men and women who bravely stand up to the public scrutiny, harassment, or ridicule to share their truth. And I know it takes great courage because I'm honored to be one of those individuals and authors who's in the 36 parables. And I told Miriam when she asked me if I would interview her that, I'm just incredibly honored. And we're going to break today's show into 3 parts. We're going to get Miriam to tell her story on how this all began. In the second part, we'll talk about some excerpts of a collection from the 36 stories. And then third, we'll talk about what I like to call the so what. Why should you care? What does it all mean? And what do we do about it? So Miriam, welcome to your own show.
Thank you, JD. You want to do this for a living.
Yeah, well, yeah. What Wags the World? Tales of Conscious Awakening by Miriam Knight, who is the founder of New Consciousness Review and the host of NCR Radio, is an award-winning show and interviews authors and filmmakers. Miriam is a former senior executive, energy healer. She's also the co-founder of Luminary Voices Speakers Bureau, and founded this New Consciousness Media Network and radio show. Julie Clayton, who is a co-editor, is a freelance editor and reviewer for New Consciousness Review. She's edited New York Times bestsellers and award-winning books on New Consciousness, and was the communications co-director at the University of Creation Spirituality, and a reviewer for Publishers Weekly and Earthlight Journal. You can learn more and, of course, buy your copy at whatwagstheworld.com or ncreview.com. So, Miriam, I said to you that I have alternated between just being incredibly happy, excited, passionate, laughing, and then just crying at the profound stories and tales of healing or precognitive visions or epiphanies, mystical experience, which define the true nature of the world from these incredible people who are doctors and famous authors and military leaders and on and on and on. So how did this start? Tell us your story.
It depends on how far back you want to go, obviously. I knew you were going to ask me this question, and I was reflecting on it. And it really all started when I was about 13 or 14 years old. I was in summer camp one night, and I was lying alone in a field on a balmy summer night by a pond and the crickets and the frogs. And I was looking up at the stars, and suddenly I felt my body lift up, and I absolutely knew that I could fly out into the universe. And unfortunately, it scared me so that I slammed back into my body.
Yeah.
And I was never able to replicate that. And it remains with me to this day as one of the big regrets in my life that I chickened out. So fast forward to about 18 years ago, when I was living in London with my husband, and a dear friend of ours, who was a name at Lloyd's of London, one of the underwriters, killed himself because there had been a call for funding, and he felt that he would be ruined and life was no longer worth living. But he obviously regretted it, because after he killed himself, he started pestering my husband to get a message to his son, because he bitterly regretted what he had done. And this somehow blew open my husband's consciousness, and he started seeing things about people and knowing things about people. And in fact, he once saved his friend's life, because he saw him at a crossroads between a hospital and a cemetery. And he told him that he has to see a doctor immediately. And he did a sufficiently good job of scaring him that the guy went to the doctor the next day and insisted on having a cardiogram, even though the doctor told him to take 2 aspirin and go home. This was the NHS and the National Health in the UK. And they discovered that he had 3 blocked coronary arteries and 1 partially blocked coronary artery. So he would have been dead in days. And this started us on a road of exploration. What was this all about? Because we knew that something real had happened here. And in fact, I started with a practice of meditation that eventually led to automatic writing, and I learned energy healing. Both my husband and I had been absolutely left-brained corporate types. He was a merchant banker and a lawyer. I was the chief financial officer and chief executive of software and healthcare companies. And we both did this midlife shift. And then shortly thereafter, we came to America, and I became the publisher of a holistic magazine, which I did for 7 years, and then started New Consciousness Review. And in this world, because publishers send me their books and their films, you're in the catbird seat. You get an overview of the waves of information that are coming through. And so many books of conscious awakening in different forms have come through that I felt that I wanted to bring these stories together in one place, because I was sure that so many people have had experiences that they were too embarrassed to tell other people about, or to even acknowledge, or they thought they were going crazy. They thought they were alone and people would make fun of them. So I wanted to bring these stories by credible people. As you said, I mean, you're a prime example, JD. You didn't even mention your own credentials. JD was a naval submarine officer, an honors graduate of Annapolis. He was chief CEO of Ernst & Young in Singapore. He was responsible for the cleanup of the Exxon Valdez oil spill when he worked for Exxon. I mean, people like JD who are of this world, who suddenly start seeing other dimensions.
And I want to, if I could interrupt and just thank you for that, but to speak for these other authors, you said all the things I felt. I had precognitive visions. I had a near-death experience. I went through the tunnel. I discovered that who I am wasn't my job. Money didn't make me happy. A lot of these stories told by the 36 authors. And I felt ashamed, embarrassed, alone, depressed. I thought I was going crazy. And I know that that's what all of those other authors have felt. And so, from my heart and from their hearts, thank you for doing this and bringing together this amazing collection of stories. Each parable, I might add, for the listeners out there, is broken into basically three parts. I like to think of it as the uh-oh, the aha, and the so what. The uh-oh, Miriam and Julie do a great job asking these wonderful questions, which I had pointed out to her actually mirror the hero's journey. And the first question is the departure from the journey, which was, the 180-degree turn in our life. So the first question is, what particular event or experience in your life somehow changed your point of view on reality? So that's the uh-oh. The second question is what insight did you learn as a result of this, and how did it affect you? That's what I call the aha. And what's your message? What I call the so what. So how about we jump in and spend some time now talking about some of the examples. What's your favorite one?
It's like a mother with all her children. She can't really admit to favorites. One of them.
Miriam, before we get into it, why don't you explain to the listeners out there what the major sort of categories, because I know you've kind of bucketed them into some categories of experiences. You want to tell them what they are?
Well, actually, I was just about to embark on that. So Obviously we are in sync. Not all of them were, sudden experiences. Yes, there were near-death experiences, or there were sudden epiphanies or mystical experiences. Many of them, maybe half of them, had one of these, or a dark night of the soul. There's something about getting to the point where you feel you cannot go any lower, and you just surrender and you say, God, what's it all about? Show me. So that is a very powerful state of mind. Other people may have had these kind of knowings or experiences or abilities since childhood. In some cases, they had kind of tucked them away, and only in later years did they acknowledge them and bring them back up into the light to play. But other people were simply seekers. They had the sense that there has to be more than this, that religions were not doing it for them. They had this yearning to connect with the mystery, but didn't quite know how. So they experimented, they explored, and it was through this process of learning, exploration, and almost universally of adopting a spiritual practice like meditation that enabled them to get insights into the primacy and the universality of consciousness that extends beyond this body, beyond the brain, beyond this lifetime. That's the big turning point.
I like that, beyond the body, beyond the brain, beyond this lifetime. There's a number of themes which or I guess you might say, they're themes, motifs that are just throughout the 36 parables. And you touched on one of them: letting go, surrendering, I am you, you are me, we are one, our interconnected nature. And so before we dive into some of the examples, can you kind of share some of the major key points that, the vast majority of these 36 highly credible professional doctors, teachers, professors, military,
Okay, well, I touched on a few of them. One of them is what Larry Dossey calls non-locality, or the universal mind.
Yeah, I love that part.
Where you realize that here you are in the universe, and you are exploring the universe. So you have a perspective that is so much above and greater than the physical manifestation that we call reality, that consciousness must exist somewhere outside of us and be kind of looking back down or back in.
A lot of them, these authors and these stories, they are mathematicians, scientists, physicists, psychologists, and so many of them say the same thing in a lot of different ways about, how we have the same DNA, we share the same air, water, and minerals, that reality is 99% what we don't see. And I love the story by Dr. Dossey. What do you want to share what his event was?
Sure. Larry Dossey is a medical doctor, and he was asleep one night, and he had a very vivid dream. He saw the son of one of his medical colleagues struggling in a hospital setting, and absolutely refusing to have whatever electrodes were being put on him. And when he woke up, he was moved much more deeply than any normal dream would warrant. He went into the hospital to do his rounds, and he was having lunch with his colleague, the father of the child who he dreamed about, when the child's mother came in holding the little boy, who was, flushed and tear-stained and panting, and had absolutely refused to let the technician put EEC electrodes on him. And Larry Dossey asked his colleague, "Is there any way I could have known this? Did you tell any of your colleagues?" And his friend said, "No, absolutely not. Only the neurologist and I and my wife knew." And so Larry Dossey told his friend the story of having this precognitive dream. And they both kind of were silent, because this was so opposed to everything that they knew as scientists. And over the course of the next week, he had 3 more precognitive dreams, all of which came true. So this got him looking into the whole notion of the non-local mind. And in fact, he was the one who coined that term. And it started him writing about it and thinking about it, and he has become one of the pioneers of the new consciousness.
One of the authors, I forget which one, it might have been Paul von Ward or Peter Russell, said that they didn't kind of just talk about things that they read, that they were, everything that they went down this path on was based on, and these are the key words, personal experiences. Personal experiences, not, oh, I think or I read or I researched and I'm curious, but, whoa, this happened to me. Like Dr. Dossey, he had the uh-oh moment, as I called it. And my story, the same thing happened to me 23 years ago when I had the same kind of vision about the Valdez oil spill with the ship collapsing on the rocks. And then 4 days later it happened. And I never told anyone for 20 years. So this same pattern repeats with other people on and on. So Dr. Dossey's uh-oh was this precognitive event, which happened multiple times. And then his aha was this awareness of non-locality. So what's his so what? What's the message from Larry Dossey?
Well, as he said, the ethical implications of one mind are absolutely monumental. Actually, I'm going to quote from him. The non-local, unbounded, collective one-mind view of consciousness permits a revision of the Golden Rule, a version of which is found in all the world's major religions. Rather than saying, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, the Golden Rule becomes, be kind to others because, in some sense, they are you.
Yeah, I love that. That was great. Well, let's go next, since we're talking about one mind. Let's go to Peter Russell and talk about the global brain, which I absolutely loved. I didn't know that was his work. But before we do, I want to remind our listeners out there that I am J.D. Messenger, and we are interviewing Miriam Knight, the author of the new book just released, What Wags the World, Tales of Conscious Awakening, which has been compiled and edited by Miriam and Julie Clayton. So, and if you want to get a copy, I strongly encourage that you do. It is, I think, a potentially, words escape me. I was going to say earth-shattering, but that's not the right metaphor. I think this is a watershed event, Miriam. So you can go to whatwagstheworld.com or ncreview.com and get your copy before the first printing sells out. Okay, so tell us about Peter Russell and his aha message.
Okay, well, Peter Russell was a mathematician and a physicist, and he was studying the question of how the universe had evolved into being. And he realized that physics wasn't going to help him find the answers that he was looking for. And he felt that the answer was in consciousness. I mean, you've all heard of Schrodinger's equation and the cat in the box, the consciousness, which simply stated says that an event horizon occurs only when you have the interaction of the observer. It's the consciousness of the observer interacting with the field that collapses the probability function, and it becomes a real event. So this was all very scientific, but Peter Russell decided that science was never going to answer these very profound questions, and you have to look to people who have made a profession of studying these things, namely the swamis and the gurus. And so he took himself off to India, and he studied transcendental meditation with the Maharishi. Interestingly enough, I learned just a few days ago that Deepak Chopra had also gotten his start studying transcendental meditation with a Maharishi. Anyway, and this kind of put him on the path of making his life's work the study of consciousness and trying to make that accessible to the masses in simplified terms, because of the same implications that we discussed before with Larry Dossey's work. The implications of a sense of unity, a sense of continuity in existence, which changes everything. Then, when you are aware that you are truly consciousness having a human experience, you can live your life differently because you don't have that Damocles sword of fear of death hanging over you and affecting your decisions.
If I connect the mosaic between the story, I love the threads, right? So we had Dr. Larry Dossey, who has this precognitive event and then a series of them, which are his personal experiences. He can't ignore, he can't deny. He goes on his journey, his quest, and he discovers this non-local interconnection in the one mind. And then you have Peter Russell, and of course I really can relate to Peter Russell with, the math and the physics and the psychology and all of that. And he reaches the same point. So I laugh when I read some of this, because I laugh about how we're all on many different paths, but we all get to the same destination in a different way, Mm-hmm. So who's another example you'd like to share?
Well, Anita Moorjani is a very dramatic example.
Yeah.
She was living in Singapore of Indian parentage, and she was in business. She very talented, spoke 4 languages, 5 languages.
Yeah, oh my God.
And came down with a very virulent form of leukemia, which took her down to stage 4 and a coma quite rapidly. She went into hospital in coma, and her parents were told that she had only about 6 hours to live. During this time, she crossed over into the light tunnel and met with her father, who had passed earlier, and also a girlfriend who had passed from cancer. And they introduced her to the spirit world and to the reality of what we are. And she realized the absolutely unlimited power that we have to create our lives, to create our experience of life. And she knew with absolute certainty that if she were to come back, she could heal herself from cancer. Now, and so she decided she was going to do this, and she did. She woke up and sat up and wanted food. Within days, her lymph nodes that had been so purulent, so had broken through the skin, and they would have needed plastic surgery to close up the wound under normal circumstances, closed up on their own. She went for a CAT scan. They could not find any evidence of cancer in her lymph nodes. This was within a week or two. And she has since been reflecting to people on her lessons. And the biggest lesson was that you have to love yourself. If you do not have that self-love, you just don't have the foundation to hold body and soul together. But once you love yourself, you then have this power source to do anything that you want in the world. So when you make your choices in the world, reflect on, is this choice something I am doing for others, or because I think I should? It's my duty. I want to please my parents. I want to please my spouse. Or is it something that's going to nurture you? Is it something that you're doing because of love? And you use that as your compass, and you will be unstoppable.
She says this, and again, connecting the threads in the big mosaic here, the things that connect and weave through all these stories said in many different voices, which to me is one universal song. She said that we spend the rest of our lives going to self-help seminars and reading self-help books in order to rediscover what we were born with in the first place, and spent the first half of our lives forgetting. Another author, and again, I forget which one it was where I read this, was basically saying, we've got all these people that are trying to tell you that you're not accountable, you're not responsible, it's someone else's problem, and in fact, the truth, what they all say, the truth lies within. We know the truth. All we have to do is remember who we are, remember where we came from, and that we can all tap into this universal mind and find those answers from within, which of course is the message from Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Let me give you another
Sure.
story that I particularly like because, and you know this young man, Jake Ducey. Jake Ducey was a college student, a surfer, a jock, absolutely had it made on campus. You know, had nothing to do with studies, but boy, was he living the high life. And he was lying in his bed one day with this deep kind of existential depression, thinking, what's it all about? It has to be about more than this.
At around age 19 or something like that, right? Okay.
And he said, I am not going to get out of this bed until I get some answers. And the answer that he got was that the universe is a loving place, and all he has to do is trust. And so he set out on a journey around the world with little more than a backpack and very little money, trusting that he would be cared for and led to find what he was looking for. And his book describes this journey, and it's absolutely magical. And today he's a at the ripe old age of 22 or 23, a very powerful motivational speaker.
Yeah. I like his title, Into the Wind. You know, was it my 6-month experience traveling the world, something like that. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. What about another story that's maybe a little different? How about Suzanne Giesemann, if I'm saying that correct? Is that how?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one is, her story, some people could perceive as a little bit more out there. However, you have to look at who she is and where she's been and what she's done. Again, a very credible individual. Tell us about Suzanne.
Well, absolutely. I mean, Suzanne was career military. Commander Suzanne Giesemann, worked for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I'm just trying to find her bio here.
Yeah, she was an assistant to the CNO, and she's got a picture with her and President Bush on her website. You know, obviously a total flake. You know. Shout out to you, Suzanne. You know, I was in the Navy, so. But I mean, my goodness, you know. And what's Suzanne's shocking story?
Okay, so what happened with Suzanne was that her stepdaughter died, and she and her husband were devastated, and they went to a medium, and the medium told them things that she had no way of knowing. And to Suzanne's military-trained mind, this was just so out of any reality that she knew or could understand that she felt she had to go and find out more about this. She became a journalist, and she started writing books about mediumship. And in fact was interviewing another medium who looked at her during the course of the reading, and she said, "You know, you're a medium." And Suzanne said, "No way."
No, yeah.
And so she put her on the spot, and she said, "Look at this person and tell me what you see." And Suzanne proceeded to give incredibly accurate readings for, you know, a half a dozen people. So, and you know, today she goes around giving talks and giving readings. She has become a powerful voice for the reality of communicating with people in another dimension. Mediumship is translating the energetic messages from their spirits through the medium of the medium and conveying them to other people. And the point of mediumship is to give people comfort and to give people confidence that there is more to existence than just this lifetime. And when you know that, first of all, that dying is probably one of the most exciting things and most wonderful things you'll ever do in your life, as Neil Donald Walsh once said, that you get to come back. If you've left unfinished business, you get to do it over again. That life is evolution. It's experiencing. It's expanding the universe through the medium of your own existence. Everything that you do in life expands the whole of creation. You are a creator being. How exciting is that?
Oh, it's incredibly exciting, which is why, I got goosebumps all over me when you said that, which I call truth bumps in 11 Days in May. You know my story, but I'll share it for some of those listeners. Since my book came out telling those stories that I've had over 100,000 emails and dozens or hundreds of clients. And I'm going to tell you, I'll mask a little bit of the details out there because, it's personal information. But I know several heads of HR in large corporations. We're talking large corporations who are mediums. And they come to me and they say, my employees come walking in the door and in comes with them a whole bunch more information. And these employees think that these HR directors are like, just amazing people. And what the directors say, again, very credible, professional, people are saying, I'm just listening to what their angels or guides are telling me. And the same goes on with doctors who are psychologists and so on and so on. And so it's nothing unusual. It's actually our greatest sense. We're talking about our ability to tap into this field of energy and understand that field, which leads me to perhaps our last story. I'd like you to tell the story about Foster Gamble. So while you think about that, I want to remind our listeners out there, I am J.D. Messenger, and I am interviewing the amazing, awesome, wonderful Miriam Knight, the author of What Wags the World. And you need to buy this book right away before the first edition sells out. It's whatwagstheworld.com, and you can learn more at New Consciousness Review, ncreview.com. So, Miriam, let's tell one more story, and then we'll kind of do a wrap-up of what's it all mean? Tell us about Foster.
Sure. Well, Foster Gamble is from the family of Procter & Gamble. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, and he turned his back on it, primarily because of an experience he had as a young boy. Probably early teenager, when he was riding in a bus and he suddenly saw out the window reality folding itself into the shape of a torus. A torus is like an energetic donut with I think in school you've all seen these kind of magnet filings, going around the outside of a donut magnet. So you've got this energy flow that comes through the center and out around the periphery and through the center. And that this is the basic geometrical construct of the universe. And this totally set him on a path of turning his back on the corporate world and going into science and consciousness and setting up a foundation to explore consciousness and science and the workings of the universe. And he has a website that he set up for his foundation called the thrivemovement.com. And his movie Thrive talks about how we are meant to be unlimited beings in an unlimited universe. We're not meant to be kind of of worrying about what somebody else gets and thinking that that's at the expense of us, that the universe is abundant, that we can all thrive together.
I think that one of the things that I like about what Foster was saying is, a lot of these authors take something that's at 50,000 or 100,000 square feet, and they tell you a story. They're, what was their turning point question? They give you an insight, the aha, and then they drill it right down to surface level. And I love the way Foster did that in saying that if I could say one thing, it's pay attention. Another one of the authors said, be kind.
Oh, that was Peter Russell.
Yeah, be kind. And, so pay attention to your thoughts, pay attention to what's going on, that there's this thriving, beautiful universe around you. We're all a part of this, like the Dr. Larry Dossey, Peter Russell, Paul Van Ward, I think it was also. It's so moving. It's so touching. There's an energy in this book that I think is just, I don't know, it kind of chokes me up, Miriam. I mean, 36 tales of courage and wisdom and unexplained, quote unquote, unexplained phenomenon, unexplained by the laws of science as we understand it. But in fact, the laws of this universe, which is the 99% of the invisible nature of reality, don't operate by the laws of humanity or man. We might have, we've got a couple of minutes maybe for one more story if you want to share one, or we could kind of move into the final, what's it all mean? Where do we go from here? Your choice.
Well, I just want to share a quick one, which is Paul Van Ward, because his background is really astonishing. He grew up in a sharecropper's cabin in Florida. He became a fundamentalist pastor, preacher, and then started asking awkward questions about what does it mean to be saved, and what about people who have never heard of Jesus Christ? Does that mean that they're damned? And that didn't seem fair. Yeah. So then he started to university and he studied psychology, and he couldn't find answers that really satisfied him there. He ended up going into the services, into the Navy, and he was just about set to command a swift boat in Vietnam. And he felt that he wasn't really cut out for the military mind, ended up going into the Foreign Service. He was a diplomat for 15 years. He worked in the State Department. He has 2 master's degrees from Harvard. And he was kind of invited to leave the State Department when he contributed an analysis of the workings of the State Department to a book that was less than laudatory. And one of the things that he realized was that every step, and you had introduced the show by talking about the hero's journey, every step in his own trajectory had led to the next. And he realized, he had an insight that maybe it was connected to past lives that he had, that he was kind of recapitulating past wisdom that he had acquired. And he just went on to write many wonderful books that brought his amazing intellect to bear on these issues. And I just want to use the last sentence in his message to the reader, because you will appreciate it, because he was also in the Navy. And he says, to use a Navy metaphor, we are all steering a course from day to day, and even though we may not know the final destination, we must fix our gaze on the horizon, take our best guess, and head for the stars.
Yeah. It's the universal journey which Joseph Campbell describes in The Hero's Journey. It is the universal message, I believe, that all spiritual practices, we say this all the time. It might be new to some listeners that all religions are spiritual, but spirituality is not a religion. So the essence of all the religions embrace these same principles, these same practices, that we are going on this journey in a path. And I like what Paul's saying. I personally do resonate with that we are connecting the dots from all of our experiences. Because I think, everything is pure energy. We know that's a scientific fact. That energy is light. That light is photons. And that's what we are. And energy can't be created or destroyed. So we are an eternal being. And, we don't forget something that we've learned. Who was it that said a mind once expanded cannot return to its original state?
Right.
The name escapes me for a minute. It'll pop into my head. But so we've got a few minutes left, Miriam. And again, we're talking with Miriam Knight, one of the copy editors of What Wags the World and reviewers that compiled these 36 stories of credible, amazing individuals having mystical or unexplained phenomenon that helps define the nature of life, living, and reality, and our purpose for being here. You can get a copy at whatwagstheworld.com, ncreview.com. Miriam, is the book also available in any other place?
Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, and a bookstore near you. Just ask for it.
Amazon and Barnes & Nobles. What about an ebook as well, I believe?
Yes,
correct?
yes. Mm-hmm.
All right. So go ahead. Where do we go from here?
Where do we go from here? I am reminded of the parable of the blind man and the elephant. Because all of the stories that we read, and there are, in fact, with you, JD, there are 37 stories.
Oh, okay.
All of the stories give a particular perspective of a truth that these individuals have perceived. Together, they interleave and interweave to create a broader picture, which is still only an approximation, only a kind of tip of the iceberg of what the truth may be. At the end of the day, the truth is what you feel it to be in your heart. The truth for you is what you glean from these stories and what resonates deeply with you. Because as one of the common themes is that we create the reality that we are living in. So what you resonate will affect how you live your life and what your life gives back to you. So if I were to say the common theme that is uppermost is live your life from a place of love and not fear. Live your life with a sense of abundance and a benevolent universe that wants you to succeed and grow, because through your success and your growth, the entire universe grows and succeeds.
Well, I guess in my reality, I eliminated my own story from your book. I kept saying 36 tales because I didn't have my name on the list. So okay, there's 37. Correction to the show, folks. Wow, that's beautiful. And if you're present and you're feeling this and you're hearing this and you're absorbing this, then you should just have a big sigh of relief that we are in this beautiful place where we have unlimited potential and power, and that our purpose is to discover our path and purpose, or remember it, and to pursue our passion and unleash that power, which is our light power, and do great things. So, Miriam, it has been an absolute honor, and I am so happy for you.
Thank you, JD, and thank you so much for helping me kind of bring the messages in the book out. It's a little difficult to toot your own horn, And I feel so passionately about these wonderful people, including you, who have really put their lives out there on the line, braving, raised everything from raised eyebrows to total calls for commitment. And you are changing our perception of reality, and you will change the future of the world.
Well, thank you, and thank you to all of these amazing people and these wonderful individuals and yourself. We give thanks to you. We are grateful for you. We honor you. We recognize we are all a part of each other, telling this one universal song. And we've been talking with Miriam Knight. Her book is What Wags the World. Get it at whatwagstheworld.com, amazon.com, barnesandnoble.com. There's the ebook as well. You can learn more at ncreview.com. Pay attention to what's going on there and stay tuned, because I know there's going to be a lot more wonderful things coming out about the book, including programs and potentially some other events with the authors. I am J.D. Messenger. You have been listening to New Consciousness Review. To our listeners around the world, good morning, good evening, and good night.
And I do hope you will join us next week when our guest will be Sonia Choquette, talking about her incredible journey, walking home. We're going to close the show with a really upbeat track from the dynamic Gina Citoli, whose website is ginacitoli.com. That's GINACITOLI.com. Gina has this one-woman show called Cabaret of Consciousness. And here is a track from that show, which is also a CD. It's called The City of Light. Enjoy.